I have some answers to that. But first, we should mention we tried to reach out to EFI to also get an answer from them what technology they are using when you check this flatten box after imposition. We understood the question such a way that there's a checkbox that performs flattening of PDF files that come in before or after doing imposition, and when you check that box, some output is just screwed up. Unfortunately, we have not gotten feedback yet to EFI which technology you are using. We are assuming that the Adobe technology is being used. We know from other examples that we have here at the Ghent Workgroup where a flattening process, even in Acrobat, creates bad results. So actually the point of the maybe it's something upfront about flattening. So we are all on the same side. When we talk about flattening in the Ghent Workgroup, flatten is actually the process where objects using a transparency mode inside a transparency group having a transparency blend color space gets converted to opaque objects. So that is actually the flattening process. When an object gets converted to a so-called opaque object, and when such opaque objects get created, we see fonts that get outlined, vector elements that get rastered, just to get a visual representation of the transparency effect, but without any transparent mode definition, so to speak. So that is really a change of the PDF content. That is transparency flattening, and that is what's happening when you perform a transparency flattening, for example, in Acrobat, or when you convert a PDF to PostScript, because PostScript has no transparency effect functions, so to speak. Whereas when we send a PDF with transparency to a PDF renderer, like a PDF print engine or a current Harlequin RIP, then transparency is never flattened at any time. The transparency is rendered to the output color space of the device the renderer is driving. For example, when you go to a digital printing machine, to a color copy machine, then I assume everything is rendered to C by K in the resolution that is required by the printing machine. You can, even when you open a PDF with transparency in Acrobat is also a PDF renderer, and the PDF is rendered into the color space of Acrobat, which is then usually RGB for the monitor, and the transparency is never flattened at that point. So we want to make sure that you understand transparency flattening is something completely different than transparency rendering. And if someone says the transparency is then flattened in the RIP, that's wrong. Transparency in a RIP that is processing PDF natively, meaning there's no conversion to any other format, does not flatten transparency. On the other hand, we, Ghent Workgroup, say there should not be a need in modern workflows today where transparency needs to get flattened for whatever reason. We know that there are sometimes issues with transparencies or in the output when upfront transparency flattening solves this one issue. But this is, in our eyes, a very special case, a side case, and it's definitely not the normality. Normality should be no flattening is necessary. And when we read the question from Jake, where it says in some second question, for some of our workflows, it is necessary to impose an object twice, which is not possible without flattening at the first stage. The example here he has given us does not explain why flattening is needed. The only thing we can say at the moment, a modern workflow supporting PDF files, PDF-X4 files, should not have a need to flatten PDF files at any point. And if flattening is happening for whatever reason and the output is not as expected, it's either a misconfiguration or a bug in the flattening engine. To check if flattening is done the correct way, we have the Ghent Output Test Suite. In that case, that's the page 2. On the left side, you see the expected results. That is how it should come out. And on the right side, you see a version where I used a renderer that is not capable of handling all transparency modes and transparency blend modes. You see it by the red and by the X's on those two patches that occur. The right output is definitely wrong. Even if the left page gets flattened in a correct way, it should still look in the final output like the left page. If an X occurs, then something just went wrong. And if something went wrong, someone has to look into the issue. As I said, sometimes it can be a configuration issue of the DFE, of the flattener, whatever. But it also can be a bug, and we are aware of bugs of the flattening engine even in Adobe Acrobat. Excellent. That was my lengthy answer again.
So maybe what Jake can do is download this output suite. It's actually we're up to version 5 now, and then test that through his imposition and his output and see what happens. Also should say that EFI are members of the Ghent Workgroup, so they actually publish on the Ghent Workgroup website the correct way to configure your Fiery to make sure this output suite images correctly. So yeah, there are solutions out there.
I'm sure it has to do with the flattening process that's happening. Again, it would be nice if Jake could elaborate why flattening is necessary, because I couldn't read from his answer the cause why what he is doing an end-up imposition requires flattened files.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also very important to reiterate that the question was, is it possible to output the Ghent Output Suite with flattening correctly? The answer is yes, it is possible, but we know of several glitches in several softwares that make mistakes. So it's the difference between reality and what should be possible.